Good evening, everyone. We're going to make a start because we've got rather a lot to get through this evening. So first of all, thank you to everyone for coming to what I hope you will find an enlightening event sponsored by Holliston PTO Parent Education Programs. As you know, Holliston's mission for this school year is to rekindle Holliston's innovative spirit. As such, parents, teachers and students have been working towards bringing more creativity and innovation to Holliston classrooms with the support of the administration. What you're about to see and hear will demonstrate just a few examples of that. It's often easier to imagine creative classrooms in the early elementary grades, and Mrs. Gleason and Mrs. Parker gave an incredible insight into how Placentino is making great progress in this area at our December parent education event called Playful Parenting. If you missed that event, you can see a recording, including Dr. Larry Cohen's seminar and the curriculum presentation via the HCAT website. I highly recommend taking a look. Tonight, we're going to focus a little more on the higher grade levels. We'll hear from Dr. Jackson with a brief overview from the district level, from Mr. Jordan to explain some innovative projects happening at the middle school, and from Mrs. Peters, who will talk you through some of the project-based learning experiences she's had with her 5th grade social studies groups. As a special treat, we also have a recorded interview with the students who made it to the final stages of the Biogen Sparks contest. More on that later. And of course, we'll then screen the movie Beyond Measure. It's a lot for us to cover in the next 2 hours. The speakers will be live streamed and recorded via HCAT. However, the documentary will not be recorded due to the licensing agreement. You can revisit and share the great presentations you're about to see with your personal networks, and we encourage you to do so. Before I hand over to Dr. Jackson, I want to read an extract from the book Beyond Measure by Vicky Abeles, the director of the documentary we're about to see. Everyone here will receive a copy of this book delivered to their home address. If you fill out an address label and put it in the box on the registration desk before you leave, if you haven't already done so, I'll be sure to forward that on to you. Numbered Identity by Tira Okamoto, 17, Lowell High School, San Francisco. I am 20, 40, 31, and 3.67. I am 500 words on the Common App. I am the stacks of Scantron tests that lie on my bedroom floor. I'm the SAT, ACT, and AP test prep books. I am one of the millions of bubbles I will have filled out by the time I graduate from high school. I am a student being taught by teach-to-the-test teachers. I am instructional minutes and A to G graduation requirements. I'm the 8 hours of high school. I'm the 5 hours of homework. I am the less than 5 hours of sleep. I am a test crammer who hardly remembers the information after the test. I am the AP machine, the bubble robot. I am the repeat. I am a product of the system. I am standardized. What more do you want? Why can't I be known as a dancer with crazy curly hair, a bike rider who loves to read books, an avid baseball fan whose passion is global communication and relations? Why am I just a numbered identity? I'll leave you to consider that while we go through our agenda this evening. And now I'll hand over to Dr. Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, and welcome, everybody. I'm passing out one sheet of paper that I wanted to share with everyone that's also my first slide, because I wanted to share with you briefly some of the work that the administrators have been doing here in Holliston to begin the work of trying to rethink what should be going on in our classrooms. And we spent pretty much a lot of the fall together trying to craft what is known as a purpose statement, or others call it the vision of a graduate. In other words, what is it we're trying to do? Why are we here? Why are we here? And what is our vision of a graduate? And this is what we came up with. And I'm sharing it with you for 2 reasons. First of all, because I think it's a really important statement of purpose that is driving a lot of the work. Well, I don't know if it's driving it or reflecting it. I'm not going to take credit for driving the work, but I'm going to take it at least reflects the philosophy around which much of this work that is happening in our schools is taking place. We believe that the purpose of pre-K to 12 education in Holliston is to develop critical thinkers, effective communicators, and collaborative problem solvers who are self-aware, curious, creative, compassionate, and resilient young adults, poised and prepared to pursue their passions and contribute to our increasingly complex, interconnected, and ever-changing world. Building on a strong foundation that we have already laid, our work moving forward is to question conventional thinking, challenge external mandates that deter us from our purpose, and focus our efforts on developing and implementing innovative curriculum, instructional practices, and assessments in order to fulfill our purpose for each child we serve. We worked hard on this, and I know at some level a lot of this looks like edubabble, and I get that, and I appreciate that, and but to me and to the teachers I've talked to, this is a strong statement of purpose and a strong statement of what we're not doing as well. And because what you will note in here is you don't see the word MCAS. You don't see the word statewide assessments. We're not driving our instruction towards those goals. And frankly, and I don't know how this audience feels about that, but I know how I feel about that, and I know how your educators and your educational leaders in Holliston feel about that. And I'm beginning to get a really good sense of what your teachers feel about that. Because when we started off the school year and I told them that I was taking off their handcuffs and telling them they didn't have to focus on MCAS, the reaction was palpable and significant. And I think some of the work that you're seeing, that you will see in terms of examples tonight, comes from the energy that came from that release. And I want to share with you, because there's no one here from the high school, I want to share with you one project that's going on at the high school. Back in September, 2 teachers came to me and said, we want to have this interdisciplinary program to create a tiny house. We want to design it in our math class. We want to build it in our construction class. We want to market it through our business class. And all we need, Brad, is $10,000. And I knew at that moment I was being tested. And I had a decision to make. And guess what? I told them I would find the money. And what you see in front of you is a picture that was taken today of they're just getting ready to lay the final floor and begin the walls. And I'm not going to embarrass anybody who's sitting in this room, but the reason I thought about this today and wanted to share this with you today is because I was walking around the high school around 3:15, 3:20, 3:30. I'm a walker. My Fitbit is my friend and my enemy at the same time. And I was walking by this room at 3:15. High school gets out at 2 o'clock. And there were several students and 2 teachers in that room working. Not these students necessarily. It was the teacher shown here. 2 teachers and 4 or 5 students working on this project. That project connected to those students in such a way that they gave their time to come after school to work on a project. I think something's working here. Moreover, there were 2 staff members, one of whom's a special educator who was serving a special education student in the class who were there as well, giving their private time, their personal time to work with those students to obviously keep them safe, because there's a lot of tools, machinery, and et cetera, but they were giving their time. That means to me that we have struck a chord with our staff, that they're excited. And I want to share that excitement with you. I'm probably a little bit too much of a cheerleader, I know, and it's probably a part of my job I enjoy too much, but I'm really excited about the changes that are happening. I'm excited about the energy that's in our schools and the energy that I see in the conversations I have with teachers. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jordan, who's going to talk to you a little bit about, do you want to do it or am I doing it? Who's going to talk about some examples of what's going on at the middle school.
Thank you.
By the way, please congratulate Mr. Jordan, who's just been appointed permanent principal of middle school.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. So I think this is kind of a really exciting time, one, to be an administrator, but also to be a student, to be an educator right now. We're still at kind of the initial stages of things, but we're really trying to really shift what we're doing. I feel like over the last, definitely within my career, I'm somebody who's been entirely an educator in a world of standardized testing, and almost, I'm young enough, entirely a student in a world of standardized testing. And I'm now getting to shift into being an administrator that is getting to try to do some new and innovative things. Now, these innovative things aren't necessarily things that never existed. They're just some of these things that we're bringing back to school. So this is, and I'm picking up here, but is a fantastic time for education. So I have read this book, Beyond Measure, that we'll get into, and I do encourage, after you see the video, definitely kind of getting into the book too. They do have it kind of on tape, and you can kind of listen to that as well. But as Dr. Jackson indicated, kind of with the vision that he had shared and what you have as far as that resource, digging a little further about what that might look like at the school level, we start thinking about some of the hard-to-measure pieces. Over the last 20 years, minimally, we've gotten into a habit of really focusing on the things that are really easy to measure, which are kind of that really standardized facts that we have. Not that those things aren't important, but they're not the only pieces of learning. But the unfortunate thing, because they're easy to measure, they become the only thing that we measure and the only thing that we teach as well. But there are some other areas that are significant as educators, as parents, we've always known are incredibly important. For example, we think about opportunities for voice and choice. So promoting student voice in school, finding opportunities where students can debate, hold points of view, discuss that, understand, be able to take perspective of others. That is incredibly important. We look at problem solving and critical thinking, time for reflection and self-assessment, actually providing that time. Instead of moving on from one piece of content to the next piece of content after we've read this chapter and answered these 5 questions at the end of this chapter, we move on to the next one. There isn't that time for them to process their learning and reflect. Thinking about opportunities for innovation. Innovation is creativity. It doesn't have like a clear definition as you're building it. It's providing an opportunity for them to reflect and create something original. If you as the educator, as the teacher, already clearly have the defined outcome in mind, you're not really allowing that student to create something original if you already know what the outcome is going to be. You almost go in where you have this guidance that you have, but you don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be for that student. They should be surprising you with something that you didn't see in the end. Additionally, collaborative and connected learning, relationship building, the ability to kind of work with others has always been something that we've talked about, but actually being something that we measure and we look at as well. And then look at targeted instruction and explicit feedback. So we still do have some targeted instruction. We still have those pieces as well, and we still look at kind of that specific feedback. Now, before I get into kind of some of these kind of big, picture items, the things that we kind of get really excited about, some of the things that are happening at Adams, I do want to assure or let you know there's some basic changes and adjustments to instruction that I think apply to all classes. And that has a lot to do around kind of like an inquiry-based mindset or kind of a constructivist mindset, which is really around questioning. It's students creating meaning, students reaching meaning versus being told exactly what the answer is. I think every student probably has that point where, why won't they just tell me the answer? Why do they keep on asking me questions? Why won't they just give me the answer? And they're continuing to guide and scaffold and helping the students come to the answer on their own. And that's kind of a major philosophy shift that I think you would see throughout the middle school. Additionally, one example of that we've taken on this year, and this is where I'll get into some examples, is called question formulation technique. This is something that came out of the Harvard Graduate School. It's something that we're trying to implement across our grades, especially it started in 6th grade social studies. It's now in 7th and 8th grade social studies where it's in English. But in general, it's teaching students how to get into inquiry, how to ask questions, and how to seek meaning, and kind of give you a piece of what is that. It is basically you design, as a teacher, you design a focus and what that focus is. And then students just produce some random questions. For example, I went into a social studies class a couple days ago, and the question is, or the statement was, Mansa Musa is the richest person of all time. Was the question, and or was the focus. And students had to put down a list as many questions as they think of to challenge that point of view or try to understand that further. So that's what they do, is they produce a bunch of questions, and then they work with closed-ended and open-ended questions, and then they prioritize questions, then they plan next steps, and then they reflect. But the idea around that, again, is around the entire kind of inquiry process. Now, kind of thinking about what we're trying to kind of get at here at Adams Middle School, we are trying to focus on kind of authentic learning. We are thinking about project-based learning, but these are all kind of pieces of this bigger kind of innovative model that we're looking at. So some examples. Now, something I am really excited about that you will see that is tomorrow is actually the Special Olympics. And we have, and we've always had, we've had a group from the Spalding Rehab Facility that comes to our 6th grade, and they speak to them. This is an English class. And they read a book called Small Steps. And it's called kind of our Differing Abilities program. Now, this year, differently, is that we've aligned it to some interdisciplinary work. This is aligned to our tech ed class as well. And students not only have the Spalding Institute come and work with them about some different models that they would have or how we adapt for things. But different this year is in tech ed, they started building actual adaptive devices that could be used in the Special Olympics. So if you were, after this event, were to walk outside and down the hallway, you're going to see, you might say, well, look at all this trash that's in the hallway. Dr. Jackson, are you going to do something about this? You just put David into principalship here, and there's just a mess down the hallway. If you take a closer look, they're all kind of various points of creation of different adaptive devices for different disabilities that students can access the Special Olympics, which is tomorrow. Now, specifically, they got to a point, or one of the models got to a point that it's going to be in use tomorrow in the Special Olympics. Specifically, it's a wheelchair adaptation that attaches so that the wheelchair-bound student can participate in the soccer portion of the Special Olympics. This is an example of kind of some actual, real experiences or projects that students are participating in and creating something very real that's being used. Additionally, we'll have some students that are going to present about their Spark competition. And I'm not going to steal their thunder, so I'm going to let them kind of get at what that is. But again, it's introducing our actual content, our actual standards, our actual classroom experience that we have, and creating something very real that they can enter into and something that they feel proud about, something that they can present to the school for, and something that they can do outside of school as well. So fantastic. Additionally, we have... You'll hear about this. It's called A Long Walk to Water. It's a book. It's Salva Dutt's life story. It's about basically a long walk to water. And it talks about like in when you in these areas of like low levels of water in Africa and different countries, many people have to walk long distances in order to have fresh water on a daily basis. And not only are they reading and learning about this text, but the next thing they're going to be doing as far as that project is they're actually going to make part of this walk, and they're going to take some donated water and make a walk to donate that water as well. So that's what we call a long walk to water, which will be fantastic. Additionally, we've got our UN sustainability goals are being brought into social studies, so looking up UN sustainability goals. We also did toys out of trash, which is basically taking recycled materials and building toys for third world countries and then donating those. We also look at a solar oven made out of trash as well. So this is in tech ed. A functioning solar oven that could be produced or created out of trash that could be used in a third world country. Additionally, for our advisory curriculum, new this year is we have an advisory. The focus around that has been a lot around our character development. We focused on kind of 7 character areas that we've been rotating through over the course of the year. Out of that, kids have created initiatives for Toys to Tots donations. They have put up inspirational quotes in the building. They have reached out to different organizations to come in, like the YMCA. We had a leadership group come in as well. So, but again, it's around some of the soft skills as far as that development. In 7th grade math, towards the beginning of the year, they did a Shark Tank project, which using the math standards, they created kind of their own project idea or their own company idea, and they presented that to a panel of administrators and community members as well. And then there's also kind of an interdisciplinary flag project, and flag is the flag field that's outside here in the back. And what they're trying to do is using some geometry, using kind of sustainability, is create like a plan for the flag field. And then present that to the school committee or to another group as far as its use. Not that it would be, that's what they would use, but it's just the idea of actually going through like an authentic process. So it is an exciting time. It is time to still focus, it's time to focus on some things that are harder to measure. The movie that's going to be shown there, the documentary that's shown, is called Beyond Measure. And that's because so much of education is beyond measure. There's so much we don't know or we do not understand about the human brain. We're being kind of egotistical to assume that we can know everything that we need to or how we can teach students. It is a creative. We are kind of artists in our brains. We are this creative person is hard to kind of wrap up and understand fully. I feel like we're doing students a disservice. We're doing ourselves a disservice by assuming that we know exactly what needs to be measured or exactly how things need to be taught. So it is an evolving process. It's a creative process. I'll leave you with, I think it was Picasso who said that, children start as artists. And it's our job as educators to not lose that, or when they the challenge is that when they become adults, they lose that artistic drive. So it's our job as educators, as parents, and as students, is to not lose that artistic drive going forward. So thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Ms. Peters.
I'm Mrs. Peters. I'm going to try to be short. Anybody who knows me knows this is a real challenge for me. So I've been teaching for 22 years. I've fifth grade currently, but I've taught in the upper elementary for that entire length of time. So I've certainly seen the pendulum swing a little bit this way, that way. Although, as Derek referenced, we certainly have been very test-focused for most of that time. So how did I get into project-based learning this year? I teach social studies now, and we've been doing a lot of projects. And so the way I came to it is actually through my own kids. I have a senior and a sixth grader who participate in Destination Imagination. For those of you who don't know, it's this wonderful program where kids are on a team of 2 to 7 other children. They have several months to solve a challenge of some sort. I'm going to look at my paper here. The challenges range from technical, scientific, engineering, fine arts, improvisational, and service learning. So they select one of those. They work with their group to research a problem, come up with a solution, and then present it at a tournament. They also, at the tournament, must solve an instant challenge where they are literally judged on their teamwork and how well they communicate with each other, and so that's something you practice over the months as well. This year, just as an FYI, in Holliston, we had 39 Destination Imagination teams, 205 students participating. So the kids are loving this, and they're telling their friends that they love it, and then more and more kids have been joining every year. I know my daughter, who's a senior, has been doing it for 6 years, and the number of kids from when she started to now has just exploded. 12 of them are going to states and 2 days at WPI to compete because they won first place in their region. So it's really exciting and fun for them. So last year, I was at this tournament with my kids, and a couple of my colleagues from Miller were there with me, and we were watching the kids do all these amazing presentations, highlighting all this learning. We said, why can't we do this? They're learning all of these amazing things, but it's only a fraction of the kids. Why can't we duplicate this in our classroom? So that's what we tried to do. We came back, and I worked with Ashley DeRoy, who's one of the other fifth grade social studies teachers. And our next unit was leading up to the American Revolution, and so we basically sort of rewrote the Destination Imagination challenges from last year and made them fit our curriculum. So we had kids who wrote skits about spies and coding during the American Revolution. We had some kids presenting digitally slideshows with facts about the events. Some kids researched newspapers and comics at the time, as well as the events, and created newspapers. We even had some kids who researched famous historic figures and events and then performed improv for the class using the details that they've learned. So all of these things required some research element, and so the way that we do that, just to show you sort of one of these slides, I use a hyperdoc. And so what a hyperdoc is, it's basically Google Slides that have links to pre-approved websites and resources. So, you know, I'm trying to think of the correct word. In PBL, in its essential form, the kids are doing all their own research and going out onto the web, and I just don't feel comfortable having my kids researching these things just out there freely. So I sort of provide a library of resources. And so you can see down the side here, this slideshow has probably 20 different slides with different topics the kids can browse through. If they find one that is the topic that they're looking for, every slide has a link that takes them to more information if they need more than the basics that are presented there. So that was a nice way to handle the research part of that. So they presented. Let me close this up. There we go. Okay, so they presented. They were okay. The kids loved it. They were all really highly engaged. The presentations were not fantastic, quite honestly. The teamwork was okay. And I kind of thought to myself, well, you know, you just sort of threw them into these group projects at the end of the year. They've got no practice with doing any of this. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you taught them the skills all year long? And the next year, when you get to this point, they'll really be able to do amazing things. So that's what I kind of wanted to do. But then I was worried because it takes a long time to be creative and to write a skit or to do the artwork and writing for a newspaper, to learn everything you need to know about the improv. So we went to Brenda Morrow and Dave Keim, and I said, listen, I really want to try this, but I don't know that we have time to continue to assess them the way that we do and do these projects. Would it be okay if we piloted for a year, just doing the projects and not worrying about preparing for the test and studying for the tests and taking the tests? And they said, yeah, we can try it for a year. Let's see how it goes. So we did extra research over the summer about project-based learning because I knew I kind of wanted to do something sort of like DI, but I didn't know that it had a real name and was an actual thing that people were doing. So I learned all about it, and we came up with some ideas. So I'm going to share a couple of them with you. Our first unit is a geography unit. Basically, the kids are trying to solidify geography vocabulary, latitude and longitude. And I'm going to go ahead and read for you the little challenge they did, and I'll show you this little guy's part of his clip. So here is the challenge. You've been hired by the producers of Netflix's newest program, Treasure Hunters International, to create the world's largest scavenger hunt for a game show. Your task is to hide valuable items in cities around the globe and then create clues so that the contestants can find them. You must use your skills as a cartographer and geographer to not only find excellent locations for each of the objects, but also to provide contestants detailed instructions as to how and where to find them. It won't be easy, but with your help, Treasure Hunters International will become Netflix's next hit show. So they found all the definitions for all the vocabulary that they needed to include. They learned about how to use latitude and longitude, and then they came up with a variety of different ways to present the information. This child's group used a green screen. They wrote a script that you'll see him reading from. Some kids just wrote it out. Some kids did pictures. There was a variety of ways that there were no requirements for how to present. So I'm just going to show you just a little clip so you can kind of see. He did a great job.
Congratulations, you just found your third treasure. Now take a boat across the Atlantic Ocean going east through the Prime Meridian. Be careful and look at your compass rose. Get off.
Okay, so he goes on and on. We're not going to listen to the whole thing because I promised I'd be short. But so you can see, I mean, he got a lot of vocabulary in there, and they did a great job. He's going to Africa. We can tell by his image behind him on the green screen. So he did a really nice job showing the content and doing it in an exciting way. So this was my first project this year. It was a lot of fun. The kids did learn a lot, but I learned a lot. Like, I put them in groups of 4 right at the beginning of the year. That's a lot. Working with 3 other people when you haven't really done it a lot is not the easiest thing. I don't know how many of you work in a group, but 4 is a lot of opinions. So next year I would probably have them, work with just 2. We realized that the tools that we were using, some of the kids were using atlases, and some of them were using different maps, and some of them were going online. Using all those different maps made it difficult for them to communicate with each other, so that was something we figured out. But it was a great start to the year and definitely got me excited to move on. I did find after this first unit, the kids needed a little break from the project work, so we did a little mini unit in between. We did 2 weeks with sort of more traditional instruction. They did independent work, independent assignments. And then we jumped in to our next group project. Let's see. Oh, this happened last time too. Let's see if I move that over there. All right. So the next topic we covered was ancient civilizations in pre-Columbian Americas. And so I presented some basic information to the kids about the Maya, the Aztec, and the Incas. They got to pick which civilization they were most interested in, and based on their selection, I put them into groups of 2 or 3 kids. So they did research. You can see here they're working together to do some research. And then they were challenged to build an amusement park that showed off the facts that they learned. So, talk about great hands-on learning. They were using box cutters and hot glue guns, and, I sent home 1 million permission slips and had as many parents in there as I could. But no one got hurt. It was all good. So they had a great time. Every single kid was highly engaged, including every year, of course, you have challenging students. I have some challenging students this year who really, where we're doing reading, writing activities, discussion activities, it's very hard for them. Every single child was fully engaged in this from the beginning to the end. They were all productively cooperating with their group. It really was very, very successful. I was very sad when I looked at the social studies content standards are going to be changing, and I'm not going to get to teach this for very much longer. And I said, oh, that's the best one. Okay. But it went great. I do have a picture of close-up of some of the things they created. So basically, they had a foam board, and then they built little things on there to show the facts that they learned. We got the potatoes and the rainbows for the Incas there, and the Maya Aztec wheel with their calendar, and the jump of doom. I think that was the Incas jumping off cliffs or something. So it went very well. Again, when they were finished, they were ready for a break. I was thinking about this when Derek was speaking earlier. This was expensive. It was a lot of materials for this. The kids were so creative. The parents sent in money to help defray the cost, but it was expensive when you're having kids be creative and build things. It's not cheap. And we did initially start out, encourage them to use as many recycled items as possible. And then I got I didn't want to limit them. They wanted the bright colors and pom-poms and, chenille sticks and all that. So we went and got those too. We recently just did a unit that is actually not a new unit. We've, 5th grade has done it for several years. I just added a choice element to it. Basically, the kids research European explorers in small groups. They share out their research with each other. And then we take notes together about facts that we think are the most important, and then the children pretend that they have traveled with that explorer, and they have to write a journal entry about their experience. So some of them are, actual journals, and we tea stain the pages and, make fake leather bindings. And then the new thing that we added this year was a technology option. And so what some of the kids did was they created a Google map. And so they would put locations on that map, and then they would put a video or clip art in here, and then, you notice she put her Italian first. This is not an Italian little girl. What she did was she wrote her journal entry in English, and then she put it into Google Translate and converted it to Italian because her explorer was coming from Italy, so she thought that would be more authentic. So I thought that was kind of cute. So it was nice to have them have that option. I wasn't sure at first, if they would go for it, and they really did about half and half go for the technology version versus the sort of crafty with the, messy with the tea and all that version. So that was another one that was great. So continuing challenges with the PBL in my classroom, finding a balance between student choice and content standards, especially at the elementary school level. I feel there's certain content that I would really be remiss if I didn't cover it, and I really do want them to know it. But it's hard to do that and then also give the kids lots of freedom of choice. So I try to give them choice when I can, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like being a parent. I know what's best for you sometimes, and so that's been my philosophy thus far with it. In terms of assessment, which of course leads right into here, what is important to assess, and what should that assessment look like? When I'm assessing how well they work in a group, how do I do that? Is it just observation? It's sort of as it's been described, it's very a soft skill to assess. It's not something you can say, yep, they did it, nope, they did it, because most 10 and 11-year-olds, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, and how do you evaluate that? And then time and materials. It is very time-consuming to do the projects, and materials for all the projects. I feel like my room's like a dumpster all the time. It's like all this stuff is always everywhere. But I'm really loving it. I think the kids are really loving it. I've never had the kids more engaged, more days in the classroom, so I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to watching the movie to see all more reasons why I don't have to give them any more tests. All right, so who am I passing it to now? I wonder. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so lots of innovation going on in Holliston, which is great to hear. I just wish that we had more time to spend on giving you some more examples. But one that I really wanted to highlight is the Biogen Competition. If you haven't already heard about it, then I'll give you a brief update. Our students had the opportunity to respond to an open call to Massachusetts and North Carolina middle and high schools to submit a video on the topic of genetic mutations. Students were encouraged to be as creative as possible while remaining true to the science. Biogen has reported being blown away by the submissions that they received this year. Holliston created 5 entries and shortlisted 2 by popular vote to be submitted, the maximum amount of entries that was allowed per school. One team called themselves CRABS Progeria Rap. The name stands for each of the boys' names and was created by Cooper Sweet, Ryan Krantz, Anish Gugalam, Braden Kelleher, and Sean O'Neill. They received a commendation and a $500 donation to the school, so huge well done to that team. The second entry was a team consisting of Ava Bergloff, Ella Dietering, Sasha Cherepanova, and Maggie Vaughan. And I apologise if I've mispronounced any of these challenging names. The all-girls team went through to the final stages of the competition. But before we hear from the team, I just wanted to recap on the Destination Imagination success. To date, we have 12 Holliston teams participating in the States. Mrs. Peters mentioned this. This is huge. The children are phenomenally excited about it, and we wish them every success in their participation on Saturday. So good luck to them. Now we're going to run an interview with the girls' team that gives you an indication of what they went through to complete their video. Okay, team, welcome. Thank you for being here today. I wondered if we could start with you just each introducing yourselves by first name.
I'm Maggie. I'm Ella. I'm Sasha. I'm Ava.
Welcome. And congratulations on getting to the finalists of the Biogen contest. We're very excited to hear some more about it. First of all, I wondered if you could just briefly explain what your competition entry is about.
Our competition entry is about genetic mutations, and it kind of goes on to genetic mutation of bubble disease and how kind of you get a genetic mutation.
Okay. And what was the objective of your entry?
Teach people about genetic mutations in a very simplistic way, but also have an entertaining video where people can be entertained, but also learn about genetic mutations and how those can be passed down.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. How did you decide to illustrate this in just a 3-minute video? I would anticipate that it's quite a big subject, so to condense that would be quite a challenge. So,
we wanted the video to be interesting and engaging, but we wanted it to be informational at the same time so that people could watch it and be interested, but get information.
Good. Okay, and did you decide on individual roles to work together, or did you collaborate as a team?
It was mostly a collaboration. Like when we were finding our information, we just all sort of learned about it. Then we touched base or gathered and discussed our results, so we could all know that we got the same things, and we were able. It was easier to build our video that way. And then once it came down to like roles, like who was saying what for the video, it was just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we didn't want we wanted everyone to have equal amounts of time on the camera.
Excellent. Okay. So did this approach strengthen the finished product? The fact that you all worked together as a team and collaborated, do you feel that strengthened your competition entry?
Yeah, definitely, because us working together kind of like made us closer, and we were more comfortable with working together, and we could build off of each other's ideas and kind of reshape people's ideas to make them fit in, and yeah.
Excellent. So I'm assuming, as with any project, that there were some challenges. Could you share a couple of the challenges that you came across?
Some challenges we had to face was fitting this all the information into 3 minutes, because we gathered a lot of information, and we also needed to look at this in a perspective of if people had never known what genetic mutations are, how we can explain that in a simple way, but also it be entertaining.
Yes, well, I think you certainly achieved that. I've watched it, and I understand a lot more about genetic mutations now. How does it compare to a typical desk experience, a typical learning experience in a regular classroom?
It's a lot different because we had to be more independent, we had to learn about it by ourselves, and we had to use our time management skills because we needed to find a way to get the information on time and have enough time to film.
Anything to add, anybody?
It was independent, and we had freedom and choices of what we wanted to learn about. Mrs. Catone gave us the basics for genetic mutations, and then we could build off on how we wanted to approach that and explain that.
Fantastic. So what have you learned individually and as a team from this experience? How has it helped you in both your educational learning and your personal growth?
I mean, I would say personally, we all learned that we were all really determined, and we like to put in lots of effort into what we wanted to result with. So I think all of our strengths combined really created a strong video that was able to get a good point across.
We are also stronger in the knowledge of genetic mutations because we had it in the perspective of teaching someone about it, so we had to know extra information.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. So what's at stake here? What does the school or the class stand to win as a result of this competition?
We are in the running to win $10,000 for our school,
Wow.
and with that money, we are hoping to put in water bottle filters so that someone who wants to fill their water bottle can get clean, fresh water for the school day.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic cause. So I have to ask, is there a bloopers video for the mistakes that were made along the way? Maybe we'll show that another time. So seriously, girls, can you remind us how to vote, how to help you to win?
You can go to the Biogen Spark website and click on the Spark Video Contest, and then there will be a header that says middle schools in Massachusetts, and then our video is the one with the white background and the X's and Y's on it, and you can just click the red vote button, put in your email, and you can vote once a day, every day, for the whole month of March.
Perfect. So you vote every single day?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
as many times as you want to vote,
Yeah.
you can vote. So we'll encourage everybody in the audience to support you and to vote.
Thank you.
And we'll wish you every success in that. It's a fantastic example of innovation in Holliston schools. So well done and thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll just take literally 3 minutes now to watch the video, and then we'll dive straight into Beyond Measure. Thank you.
First off, what are genetic mutations? Genetic mutations are caused by altered genes, meaning the makeup of a gene is different compared to a typical gene. For example, X-linked disorders, but what are they?
X-linked disorders are caused by a mutation in the X chromosome.
Females and males have different sets of sex-determining chromosomes. Females have 2 X chromosomes, and males have 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome. Now, getting serious. Genetic mutations.
Because females have 2 X chromosomes, there's a 100% chance for the mother to pass down an X chromosome. And because males have an X and Y chromosome, there's a 50% chance that the male will pass down an X chromosome, and a 50% chance that the male will pass down a Y chromosome. We can now use the same Punnett square to see how X-linked disorders can be passed down, except one of the X chromosome will be modified with the mutation.
In this example, the dad is the carrier and expresses the mutation. The offspring with 2 X chromosomes, the females, will carry the mutation but will not express it because they have another X chromosome to cover for the mutated one, and the girls would be healthy, free of the mutation.
But if the mom carried the mutated X chromosome, then 1 boy and 1 girl would have the mutation, and only the boy would express it because he does not have a healthy X chromosome to cover it.
Girls can only express an X-linked disorder if both their parents pass down a mutated X chromosome.
Using the information from before, we can make it easier to understand by using an analogy with cookies.
To start off, the mother brings in normal cookie dough, which represents the regular allele.
Then, the dad, who was supposed to bring in normal cookie dough, accidentally brought in M&Ms, which are the mutated allele.
When cookies are done, some of them will have M&Ms on the outside, and some of them will look like plain cookies.
When you cannot see the M&Ms on the outside, it is like people who carry the mutation, meaning the mutation is on the inside, just like the M&Ms.
When you can see the M&Ms, it is like people who express the mutation. The mutation is on the outside, just like the M&Ms are on the outside of the cookie.
An example of an X-linked disorder is severe combined immunodeficiency, or SCID, but mostly known as bubble disease.
But what is bubble disease?
Bubble disease is caused when a gene that makes white blood cells is mutated. Bubble disease is kind of like a machine. Without the white blood cells, you can't fight off infections, and without gas, the machine can't function.
For people with a typical immune system, their immune system is like a library and contains all the books with the necessary information to help fight bacteria and viruses. But for people with bubble disease, they don't have the necessary books with all the needed information to fight off bacteria, which means they can get very sick.
Okay, well done. We've actually got 2 of the students here this evening, so if I can just introduce Ella and Sasha, and if everybody could give them a big round of applause for their contribution. And please vote. I'm sure that they would appreciate it. Voting is open until end of March, is it? End of March, and then the contest is drawn on April the 9th, I believe, so please vote. Thank you. Now Beyond Measure. Thank you for your patience, everybody. We've had a lot to get through.